Good evening. At this time, if you would please silence your cell phones and be advised these proceedings are being recorded. If you desire to address the City Council during our meeting tonight, please complete a request to speak form available at the front entrance and present it to the City Clerk, at least for those of you that are here with us. Speakers will be called upon at the appropriate time, and each person is allowed 3 minutes speaking time. If you are Zooming in or calling in, the City Clerk will interact with you at the appropriate times. So at this time, our City Clerk has a Zoom broadcasting announcement to make.
Thank you, Mayor. As of June 15th, the City of Grand Terrace reopened its public meetings. Therefore, tonight's meeting of October 27th is open to the public. Please be advised, face masks are required, social distancing will be practiced, and occupancy limits will be enforced. Additionally, pursuant to Section 3 of Executive Order N2920 issued by Governor Newsom on March 17th, tonight's meeting will also be conducted telephonically through Zoom and broadcast live on the city's website and Channel 3. If you would like to participate telephonically, please dial *67-1669-900-9128, enter meeting ID 841-6207-6976, and enter password 297541. You may also submit your comments via email to ccpubliccomment@grandterrace-ca.gov. The City of Grand Terrace thanks you for taking all precautions to prevent spreading COVID-19.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. At this time, I will call to order the regular meeting of the City of Grand Terrace for Tuesday, October 27th, 2020. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Allen.
Here.
Councilmember Hussey.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
I am here.
Mayor McNabo.
Present.
Councilmember Robles is absent. Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we do not have special presentations tonight. Do we have any reordering of, additions to, or removal of items from the agenda at this time?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the council at one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may remove an item from the consent calendar for discussion. Are there any requests to remove an item at this time? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent calendar.
Second.
All right, motion by Council Member Allen, second by Council Member Hussey. Madam City Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Councilmember Allen.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussey.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Mayor McNabo.
Thank you. Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll move to public comment, an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any items not appearing on the regular agenda. Do we have to request to speak at this time? Okay. So because of restrictions contained in California law, the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on the agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask a question for clarification. I may also request a brief response from staff to questions raised during public comment, or a matter may be agendized for a future meeting. Thank you. Mr. Ken Stewart.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, fellow community members. I would like to present to you some considerations. Most cities, if not all, would like to maintain a quality of life, a thriving economy, and a safe city. After talking to multiple neighbors, here are some items I'd like to bring to your attention. We need a stop sign at Whistler and the Berry Streets. Currently, there are 2 stop signs. I think if another stop sign is coming down the Berry right before you hit Whistler, that'd be great to reduce the traffic coming from up the hill down to Berry. The second thing is the west side of Grand Terrace. A lot of our community members that live there, a lot of them feel left behind. They feel left behind because it is really hard to build the residential property due to the multiple hurdles placed in front of potential owners. Is there a possibility to offer tax incentives or other incentives where potential residents can use? In addition, they need help with keeping the area safe from fires, debris, and displaced individuals, which brings me to my next topic, serving those who are displaced in our city. The reason why they are here is the same reason we are here, because of the safety. This topic was broached at our last meeting. Instead of relying on only the sheriff's deputy and a handful of nonprofits in the IE, we need to make a concerted effort to address this topic. This calls for a robust team. As a city, we need to provide charity, but then also policy. We need to meet the need, but also address the root cause. Can the city council commission a group tasked with coming up with a plan? This concern has the ability to affect our quality of life, our economy, as well as our public safety. I know we can rise to the occasion because we are grand and live on a terrace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. I appreciate you taking the time to come in and share those perspectives, and I'm going to ask staff if they will follow up with you to get some more details. Thank you. And at this time, we will close public comment and return to our agenda. We have no public hearings. We have no unfinished business. So we will move to new business. First item of new business is item 6 on your agenda, which is approve the proposed coronavirus relief fund programs and the corresponding revenue and expense appropriations. Mr. G. Harold Duffy, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. For the record, G. Harold Duffy, City Manager. So this presentation is about the appropriation of CARES Act funding from the County of San Bernardino. The county received about $380 million from the federal government, and the county has decided to share those proceeds with the city of Grand Terrace. The county will share those to all jurisdictions within San Bernardino County and on a per capita basis by jurisdiction. The city will receive approximately $153,000 from the county. And in addition to that, the city will also be able to compete for another $153,000 for infrastructure projects. So at the October 13th meeting, the staff indicated they would return to the council and ask for appropriations and present programs to be able to implement those programs of the coronavirus funds. Those program opportunities are Community Youth Sports Protection Program for $20,000, the Senior Center Virtual Participation Program for $40,000, the Community Arts and Cultural Grants for $10,000, City Hall Safety and Security Program for $61,000, and the Wi-Fi expansion in public places. So let's start off with youth sports programs. So the CDC had some recommendations that we're trying to follow, and was to take precautions to reduce spread of the COVID-19, reduce or eliminate sharing of sports equipment, disinfect sports equipment before and after practice, and personal protective gear for youth and volunteers are necessary. So for that's what we're recommending for that particular program. The next program is Senior Citizens Virtual Participation Program. What this program calls for is the city to purchase equipment for the Senior Center coordinator to host virtual programs. As the staff report indicates, the city had in 2019 over 15 different types of programs with over 500 people attending, 500 participants each month participating in those programs. Since COVID-19 has occurred, our in-class participation has gone down tremendously, and we do have our Senior Center coordinator, and what she does is she calls and does individual visits with seniors. So this program is an idea to actually bring those people back together and implement those programs. So the goal will be the purchase of tablets or laptops for seniors to use, on-site classes with social distancing, and also with distance programs. So, for example, we can use the senior center, and we can place seniors throughout the building in 6 feet difference and distance, and then we would be able to have programs there, or we can do just traditional virtual programs. And what the senior center coordinator would do is help the seniors learn how to use the tablets, use the laptops, and then she would offer those classes. It's a great way to mirror our existing staff work, because we do have a senior center coordinator. She's still there, and we have lots of seniors that are very interested in participating in the program. So just in general, art classes and exercise classes going to occur through this virtual participation program. Community Arts and Culture Grant. So much like the Small Business Assistance Program, nonprofits can also apply for rental assistance. So if a nonprofit has a studio that they're hosting classes and those have been shut down, they actually can qualify under this particular program to get their rent or lease paid, like we did with the small businesses. And art teachers and instructors with business license can also apply for grants that were unable to teach classes due to COVID-19. And the nonprofits that are 501c3 groups can apply if their annual fundraisers were canceled due to COVID-19. Next, we have the City Hall Safety and Security Program. So this program tries to follow the CDC recommendations also to improve central air filtration systems to inactivate potential airborne viruses. So what they're asking for is that for air conditioning systems to have a new filtration system. Unfortunately for us, our system is old, and our major system is a 40-ton air conditioner. It can't accept the new filters and also produce the quality that it needs. So we'll have to replace that unit, and that unit is also, that operates all of City Hall and the lobby area. The CDC also recommends continuous cleaning of high-touch areas. Therefore, the city will also recommend replacement of a keyed entry area to keyless entry systems throughout the City Hall. But based upon the costs for the air conditioning filtration system and the keyless entry system, we're probably not going to have enough proceeds, but our priorities will be the filtration system and then the keyless entry system next. Then we have the Wi-Fi expansion in public places. So currently, what this overall goal would be is to take a mile of the city and then put infrastructure in place on current street traffic signals that would create a high Wi-Fi hot zone. So that's one of the options. And the other option is also to create high Wi-Fi hot zones at Richard Rawlins Park and also Veterans Freedom Park, because they have 2 concession stands that we can utilize there. Once again, we're looking at limited resources, so we will have to identify the best resource to be able to get a program that's also supports the infrastructure, but it also allows it to be active. That's the most important component. So as I said, the phasing is establish free Wi-Fi hot zones to allow people free access, and the city could start on a major corridor or in our parks. So for that, I'm available for any questions the council might have.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. Are there questions at this time of staff? Councilmember Hussey.
Thank you, Mr. Duffy. I'm sure you reached out to the youth programs, the sports leagues and stuff. What was their main concern? What would they need to do that?
So I did reach out to the sports programs, and they indicated that protective equipment was important, but also be able to look at ways, because sports programs are built on sharing and camaraderie. So this is kind of COVID-19 is kind of counter to that. So where a kid would, they would play with the same ball or things of that particular nature, they now need additional equipment so they are able to, remember the majority of their activity now is running drills. They're not really competing right now. So as much equipment as possible, and the ability to be able to have equipment to disinfect that material is also very, very important to the youth groups.
I'm interested in the Wi-Fi expansion because it's a nice amenity. This will be something that can be implemented. What will the cost be to maintain it?
I haven't got the estimate on the actual cost yet, but one of the options we were looking at, which we're looking at all the options, but one was to dovetail off of our existing system, but they're saying that would create some problems, especially during the day, and if we had backup. So the goal is to establish square mile zones or in parks, and the infrastructure it should be covered by the CARES Act, but the ongoing cost, we're probably looking at anywhere from $70 to $150 a month.
Wow, okay. And then can we change the color that it emits when it's? Councilmember Allen, did you have a question? Okay. And then the seniors, is this something that you believe the seniors will take advantage of, the virtual classes?
I think so. We have a really good a coordinator at the senior center, and she's very active with the seniors. So she's reaching out on an individual basis to seniors on a regular basis, but under that scenario, she can't get to all the seniors. So she has like coffee with Megan. She'll be able to do those things, virtual coffee with Megan, art programs. And so I think you'll find an opportunity for her to train the seniors on how to use it, and then also have them continuously move forward with the program. And the good thing about this is too, we also have the asset after COVID-19 is gone, we'll be able to actually use those to continue on with virtual programs for the seniors.
Okay, and she knows the seniors pretty well, so.
Yes.
All right. I'll open public comment. Are there any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. Close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
Motion for approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, I've got a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, and I think I heard Councilmember Allen second. First, so please call the vote.
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor McNamara?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Item number 7 is an ordinance and resolution adopting and establishing procurement procedures for public works per the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act for maintenance work. Mr. City Attorney Adrian Guerra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Oh, sorry.
Good evening. This item supports goal number 2, maintain public safety by investing in critical improvements to infrastructure. The item tonight is to have the City Council consider an alternative to the traditional public works contract bidding process to provide more flexibility to staff and the City Council for different types of projects. Under the current code, the Standard Public Contracts Code, formal bidding is required for all public projects costing $5,000 or more. Public project includes the erection, improvement, painting or repair of public buildings and works, street or sewer work, except maintenance or repair, and furnishing supplies or materials for any such project, including maintenance or repair of streets or sewers. What this means practically is that staff is required for any project that costs $5,000 to develop an invitation for bids, which requires staff time, and time is money. It then requires a formal bidding process of at least 10 days. Usually it's more. And again, time is money. So if you have a smaller project, say 5 to 10,000 or 15,000, you tack on the value of staff's time to develop this process, to go through this process, it ends up costing a lot more. And so what we're looking for in discussions with city manager and staff, they wanted to look at different options to see how we can go through it faster, give staff more flexibility to get things done, to be more responsive to the council and obviously to the public. So what is key here is that maintenance work is included in the standard definition, except for maintenance or repair of streets or sewers. So what this means is that all maintenance work must be going through the formal bidding process unless it's less than $5,000 or it's maintenance or repair of streets or sewers. That's very limited. Maintenance or repair of streets or sewers, if we go by the Public Contracts Code, requires staff to go and get 3 informal quotes, and if it's less than $10,000, The city manager is authorized to sign, and it could just be done informally. If it's greater than $10,000, then a formal notice of inviting bid procedures is required. So what we are proposing tonight for council consideration is what is considered the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act method. The primary differences are, number one, it changes the definition of public project so that maintenance work is not included. In most cities, standard maintenance is what we see on a regular basis. So we're allowed to go through a different type of process for maintenance work, which provides more flexibility. And second, it provides different cost thresholds for bidding. So under this act, public project is similarly defined, however, it excludes maintenance work. This means that maintenance work need not go through the public contract default bidding procedures. Maintenance work includes the following: routine, recurring, and usual work for the preservation or protection of any publicly owned or publicly operated facility for its intended purposes, minor repainting, resurfacing of streets and highways at less than 1 inch, and landscape maintenance. And that includes mowing, watering, trimming, pruning, planting, etc. Another key difference is the bidding requirements. So if it's under $60,000, we have options. We don't have to go through a formal bidding process, as I discussed earlier. Instead, we can do it through city employees by force account. We can go through a negotiated contract or by a purchase order. So we don't, again, have to go develop a formal invitation for bids. We don't have to wait a period when the bids are being circulated, or the invitation for bids are being circulated. The next option is, the threshold is $60,000 but less than $200,000. In those cases, it could be done through an informal bidding procedure, which includes a notice inviting bid to a contractor list. One of the key items in the ordinance is that we will establish a pre-identified list of contractors that we can call upon and say, hey, we have a list of 10 electrical contractors. What would you charge for doing 10 rooms worth of lights, whatever the project is? And we can simply go to them, they provide quotes, and then we select. That would provide us a lot of flexibility. And then there's a third category, which is public projects of more than $200,000 that does have to go through the traditional formal bidding requirements. The proposed ordinance would do the following. So it would utilize the bidding thresholds I just established. It would utilize the Act's informal and formal bidding procedures for public projects, and generally would require maintenance work to be performed under this new ordinance. So for tonight, we are recommending 2 actions. The first one is to adopt a resolution, and this resolution basically says that the council and the city is agreeing to be subject to the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. And what that entails is obviously adoption of the resolution. The city clerk will be directed to notify the state's controller office that we are participating in this program, and the state does monitor contracts that are led under this program. The second would be to establish this code, and that would be adoption of the ordinance to do that. And again, this would be an alternative procedure to what we have in the code. The city staff could always go through the traditional process if they choose, but again, this provides more flexibility in terms of time and process. And with that, I'll direct it to the mayor. City manager?
Right.
Yes, Mayor, I just wanted to reiterate one important point here, is this is about expediting the process, but at no point in time does any contract over $10,000 not come to the council for approval. So what we're asking for is to be able to, as Adrian so eloquently stated, to be able to have this process where we can get the quotes quickly and then move to the council. It saves us a lot of time, but it's still, any contract over $10,000 requires the council's approval.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Questions of staff at this time? Okay. Well, that answered one of my questions. Don't we have a contractors list standard of how we operate in some areas? Is that mostly for engineering services?
I believe that we do, Mayor, and in the past, we have gone the formal bidding process where we've gotten, a list of vendors that then kind of qualify. And so, but we had to go to and that process, we did a couple of years ago, we actually had to go out to bid and get that list, and we kept that list for a period of time.
Okay. And then how would we know about contracts that are, how would you report contracts that are in place to the council? Or is just that part of it coming forward because we have to approve anything over $10,000? So anything below 10,000, how would that be reported?
Well, it would be, I think, no different than where we are now. One of the things we can't do is if we don't have the budget appropriations, we can't enter into any contracts. So anything under $10,000, we're currently entering those, and then you're looking at the check register when it comes through. Now, if the council wanted to establish just a routine list that we can provide you as part of our monthly reports, who we have contracts with, we can certainly do that.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have questions?
Thank you, Mayor. My only concern is that in the past we've had trouble, let's say, loading up our vendor list, not being able to attract enough vendors to be able to do what we need to do in a reasonable amount of time. And we've had difficulty with numbers in relation to budget and so on. I feel as if something like this might aggravate the circumstance. How are we going to mitigate, even though it's a streamlined procedure, mitigate the thought pattern among the contractors? Well, they just always go to this outfit.
So under this particular process, Mayor Pro Tem, it provides us some flexibility. And so one of the things that we can do is we can certainly send out information that we have for regular routine maintenance. But on those bigger projects, like a project that is a scheduled improvement, we will be able to send out the formal process in order to get as many bids as possible. And once again, you'll be able to see when we bring these items forward, you'll be able to see who we contacted or who's on our list.
And if I may, in some cities, they've had the exact same concern as the Mayor Pro Tem has raised. And initially, when the process has started, that is the concern that they have. But over time, when they see that they can be added to the list, they can work with the city to be added to the list, and the list grows larger, I think you're going to see more companies want to come in and participate and be on that list to have that opportunity. So I think it is going to be gradual over time.
All right, further questions? All right, do we have any requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council for consideration of a motion.
Mayor, I'll move the staff recommendation of 1 and 2.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilmember Allen and a second by Councilmember Hussey. Mr. City Attorney, would you like to read by title? Or?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The title of the ordinance is as follows: An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Grand Terrace, California, adding Chapter 3.26 to Title 3 of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code, and amending Section 3.24.060 of Chapter 3.24 of Title 3 of the Grand Terrace Municipal Code, which establishes procurement procedures for public projects pursuant to the Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act and for maintenance work. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the vote?
Councilmember Allen?
Yes.
Councilmember Hussey?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Yes.
Mayor McNabo?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. We'll move on to item 8, which is a California High-Speed Rail Authority authorization to enter into reimbursement agreement and issuance of comment letter. Mr. Steve Weiss, Planning and Development Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor McNabo and council members. For the record, Steve Weiss, Planning and Development Services Director. The item before you is a request by the California High-Speed Rail for a reimbursement agreement, and also on another matter, we're requesting that the council authorizes the mayor to sign an environmental notice of intent of preparation comment letter to be signed by the mayor. So the vision is goal 4 is to develop and implement a successful partnership with local, regional, and state agencies. This project will continue to protect our community and its exceptional quality of life. So a little background here. The California High-Speed Rail Authority, also the authority, is responsible for the planning, design, construction, and operation of the first high-speed rail system in the nation. The California High-Speed Rail System will connect what's called the mega regions of the state, which is basically, San Francisco, San Jose, all the way down the coast to LA. A little more background here to hone it in a little bit to why we're here tonight. The decommissioned Cal Portland cement site, which is that dot on the top, it's up on Aguamanza Road, which is in the county, but it's within Colton's sphere of influence, is being proposed as a multimodal transportation facility with a freight yard and switching station. Potentially, the city of Grand Terrace will be impacted with rail and truck traffic, frontage roads, and bridges that could impact especially trucking operations. And this project is called the Colton Multimodal Project, but Grand Terrace is part of this project. So the southern section, Colton component would accommodate future freight train volumes, an average of 10 freight trains per day, obviously many more trucks that could not be accommodated in what's known as the LOSAN, which is the Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo rail corridor, due to the corridor's use by future volumes of the high-speed rail and other passenger trains. It would consist of the following main elements: intermodal rail yard, railroad lead tracks, circulation and roadway modifications, and utility modifications. So the crux of this is really the agreement. It's called a reimbursement agreement. The authority has proposed to enter into a reimbursement agreement with the city of Grand Terrace, whereby the authority will reimburse the city for certain costs related to technical engineering review of the project. Third-party agreements are executed by the authority with various cities, counties, municipalities, and other affected public agencies along a specific project section alignment. These agreements are executed so the entities have an opportunity to address any concerns due to conflicts of high-speed rail, proposed alignment with their facilities and utilities. And what that really means to Grand Terrace is the high-speed rail is doing two things at once right now. They are working on design-level plans, and they are also releasing an environmental impact report and federal impact statement. What this is about is they're kind of going on these two planes, and what they're doing is they are preparing at what they call a 15% design level, which is still not that high, but it's high enough for structural engineers to review. And so since Grand Terrace is part of that area of impact, they're going to be submitting plans to the city, and for us, we're going to get them whether we want it or not. And so they're allowing between $25,000 and $30,000 that they will reimburse the city for reviewing these very intricate design level plans, which deal with railroad tracks and truck embarkation areas and all that. So the rails could be modified, the roads could be modified. So that's the one area. Now let's dovetail into the second area, and that's the notice of preparation. City staff has had the opportunity of reviewing the notice of preparation and has prepared a draft letter expressing concern with the project, which is consistent with the recommendation of the San Bernardino Council of Governments, which, and we did meet with them on this, and I'm showing you side-by-side letters. They submitted a letter already, and we submitted, we're requesting to submit a letter for the mayor's signature. So there's three areas of concern that I think we're taking away from this. Is the Los Angeles to Anaheim high-speed rail segment is a good example of the type of unintended consequence. It gives the impression that the administration, which is the High-Speed Rail Administration, introduced a Regions Rise Together initiative, and that it's using that as lip service and not interested in tackling the hard problems at the community level, particularly the inland counties of San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Second area of concern, the High-Speed Rail Authority selected a preferred environmental alternative for the Los Angeles to Anaheim segment almost 2 years ago, absent the knowledge that the Colton facility would be needed. The selection of the preferred alternative was made without full knowledge of the scope of the environmental impacts of the Inland Empire. Public outreach up to that point was limited to jurisdictions in the Los Angeles to Anaheim corridor. There was no outreach to Inland Empire jurisdictions up to that time. Recently, there's been 2 workshops in this area, but there was no detail.
And they were announced at the last minute.
Yes. So the final area of concern is, and which is incorporated in our letter as well as the SBCTA letter, is the preferred alternative is subject to revision based on the additional information being brought into focus now that the Colton facility is included. We urge the High-Speed Authority Board to consider, in the interest of promoting a fair and impartial evaluation, that the decision on the preferred alternative be withdrawn until a full analysis and disclosure is available through the draft environmental impact report and environmental impact statement, which will have the Colton component analysis included. And which that means is the notice of intent and the notice, this is the project description that we need more clarity to before they release the draft environmental impact report. They are anticipating to release it in the spring, but we do have concerns with the timing on this. So being that, we have 2 recommendations for the City Council. The first is to authorize the City Attorney to prepare a reimbursement agreement with the High-Speed Rail Authority consistent with the sample agreement provided by the High-Speed Rail Authority, which is in your packet as attachments 2 and 3, to reimburse the city for costs related to technical and engineering review support and related work, and authorize the city manager to execute it subject to city attorney approval as to form. That's the first. Now, the second is to authorize the mayor to sign the environmental notice of intent of preparation comment letter to the High-Speed Authority consistent with the SBCTA. Being that, that concludes my presentation. I am here available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weiss. Are there questions of staff? Okay. All right, I don't see Mayor Pro Tem. And I don't have questions at this time. So I will talk about SBCTA and their efforts after we hear public comment. So I'll open up for public comment at this time. Are there requests to speak on this item?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, we'll close public comment and bring it back for consideration of a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'll move staff's recommendations 1 and 2.
All right,
I'll second for discussion.
okay. So I have a motion by Councilmember Allen and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilson. This item has been something that SBCTA Executive Director and staff have been working diligently on to bring the High-Speed Rail Authority parties to a place where they'll actually discuss this. SBCTA had a very difficult time getting them to disclose any of their options. And they're also, SBCTA is in partnership with South Coast Air Quality Management District on this one and saying this does not fit with what the state has looked at for making sure that air quality in certain areas is looked at. There are certain environmental issues that the state has put in place that this violates, and that is one of the things that SBCTA is standing up saying, wait a minute, you have not looked at how this affects our region. The mayor of the city of Colton is also looking at this very carefully, and they're, when they were approached initially about this multimodal facility, they were not given a lot of details, as you mentioned. They were just saying, hey, there's this whole area that we're going to do something with that you've been wanting to do something with for a while. And so they said, well, okay, well, we're interested. But now it's coming back around with some details, and they really weren't wanting us to weigh in on this. And so the letter just helps us to stand with the other members of the San Bernardino County, San Bernardino Transportation Authority and allows us to stand strong with Colton to say, no, you really need to look at efforts to mitigate this. You can't just come in and do this without looking at the impacts that it's going to make and maybe make some changes in the way that you do things. Councilmember Allen.
Do you know what Colton's council or is doing, government is, are they doing the same thing?
It would be my belief that they are creating a letter the same way. As far as the agreement, we need to have technical engineering personnel be able to review this for us that know about these kind of projects so that we can object where we need to object.
I'd like to add real quickly, Councilmember Allen, yes, they did send a letter.
Okay.
Consistent.
Mayor Pro Tem, you had a question or comment?
I just have a concern. Do they have any kind of options as far as routing? Or is there just one specific route? And is it on standard rail lines, or is it, as I suspect, brand new equipment and travel?
It's BNSF rail line, but they would have to create routes into their multimodal facility.
And they're also proposing a preferred alternative and almost on a design build level. That's why we need to get involved early in the process.
Sounds like a standard steamroller situation for the state.
All right, any further discussion?
Right.
Councilmember Allen.
Is the amount that they're offering to reimburse, is that to cover the cost of the of what we're talking about doing? So, and if it is it going to be enough?
Excellent questions, both of them. I was in touch with the High Speed Authority on Friday. The 25 to 30 is to deal with the design level plans, not the environmental, but I've actually strongly suggested that they set aside money on the environmental side too, and it's not just us, it's SBCTA and Colton is requesting the same thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem.
One other, Mr. Weiss, are they talking about peer review in place of engineer review?
Engineer review, structural engineer review.
Okay, so what they're saying is that at this point, this reimbursement agreement would take care of engineering review and maybe possibly reports, but there might be some things that they have not included in their reimbursement agreement, and they may be sliding over towards some kind of a peer review circumstance or whatever. Sounds kind of loosey-goosey.
My position is I think it's their olive branch to have the affected cities actually take on the due diligence. And we're going to be very proactive managers, not just in planning, but also in public works, and hire the right people to actually represent Grand Terrace at the table, similar to Colton, similar to any other city on the route.
Will this letter then, Mr. Weiss, have an effect against the actual impact report? It sounds like to me that they're doing a kind of a tandem process.
They're two separate
issues.
Sorry. They're two separate issues, and we're tackling them as two separate issues.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, one sounds like it's incident to the other on timing. So by the time we actually are able to unload our comments, will they be footnoted, or will they going to be actually something that they are obligated to address?
They will be obligated. The notice of intent, notice of preparation, has not been released yet. That project description is definitive right now. They've received literally hundreds of comments, I think more than that, and so there's many jurisdictions that have expressed extreme legal concerns with the way this project's being proposed, especially the community level process. So the schedule, the rolling out the EIR, EIS in the spring might occur, it might not, but they're going to get thousands of comments if it comes out as a draft in the spring.
That's pretty fast.
They are on a tight schedule. They spent a lot of time not doing anything, and now they have to show results, and that's part of the reason they're proceeding in the way that they are, and they're not really wanting to have the discussion because they don't want to be slowed down at this point, even though they took their time up until now. Councilmember Hussey.
Yeah, on this letter here, you know, we're talking about, like the train traffic and the trucks. You know, also would be affected is our high school that's right there. You know, when the kids finally do go back to school and have a normal life because of train traffic, I mean, that's going to be the same railway, right, going through there?
Yes, part of our comments, Councilmember Hussey, is air quality, you know, land use compatibility, and all of those too. We're asking for all of that.
Yeah, and then, you know, of course, you hear from all the politicians, that's the number one concern is this air quality and land, you know, use and stuff, and taking care of our children. And then, yet again, we're looking at a possible more freight trains and more traffic and everything else on here.
Well, that's why, you know, we need to study it more, because the passenger component is suggested to be an electric train system. This is suggested to not be electric up until they can find technology to power trains electrically.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the logistic nightmare, what's going to happen to the surrounding communities and stuff. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, any further comments? Madam City Clerk, will you call the vote?
Councilmember Allen,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussey,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes,
Mayor McNibble.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. All right, we'll move to item H, which is request for future agenda items by City Council. Under this section, pursuant to requirements of the Brown Act, no items may be considered other than those listed. We have one for consideration tonight, which is enforcement or condition of approval for 24-hour security patrol for apartments in the city, and it's requested by Councilmember Bill Hussey.
Yes, Mayor, for a discussion last council meeting, it was brought up about the Highline Apartments and other apartments on their security and how it's affecting the outlining residents. Like Dr. Stewart was talking about, when, you know, we're walking the communities, we hear a lot of stuff. And one of the things I heard also by the communities or the houses that were by the Highlands is the crime that's overflowing from there. So, and then it's also discussed, you know, how the gate's not locked and stuff. And I know the lawyer, you said something about, you know, we can't enforce like the new one, but maybe in our CUP that's come up, we could try to negotiate something so these residents in the apartments are safe and it's not a burden on the city. Because, you know, one, they're supposed to supply a safe environment for them, and two, it's, you know, it's also still a business that they're making money and they're charging a lot for rent. So I would just like to see if we could look into something possible to look at a CUP for these apartments already established, and anything over a certain amount of, you know, residents there, so they, you know, safe and secure while burdening, you know, the other residents in the area. But just make sure that those residents in those apartments are safe. So I just want to see what we can do and what we can't do, and what we can go from there.
In our discussion last time, were we going to explore the CUPs that exist already with the rentals?
Mayor, what we were going to do is we were going to look at the existing, review all of the existing CUPs to ensure that the apartments were in compliance in terms of, example, proper lighting, and if there was a security component, then we'd look at all that. The goal is to make sure that the existing CUPs are reviewed and they are maintained. It wasn't to add to an existing CUP. I don't think we can do that, but I think the goal here is to review all the CUPs, and where there is a component for lighting, security, safety, that we make sure those are all enforced.
And that's why I brought up I know it's going to be longer than 1 hour for staff time, so I want to make sure if we could look into this.
Councilmember Hussey, I could support you on this item if you weren't so specific to say that it has to be 24-hour security patrol for apartments.
Okay, let's take away the 24-hour security, just safety and security. I mean, you know,
So I would support a discussion of what we could do to enforce making sure that rentals and apartments are secure.
Safe and secure.
Or have safe
that meet up
safety
the
or,
safety standards.
yeah, something to that effect.
Okay.
Because I don't think that I think that prescribing this doesn't really get to what you really
Well,
want.
and as far as like 24-hour security, I mean, that's the lighting, the camera systems, stuff like, that. Besides having patrol, something safety and security for the residents of the Highland Apartments. So.
Okay, so if it was to come back to us with a discussion about what we could enforce with respect to security at apartments, I could second that.
That's what's going to come back.
Okay. All right, so there's a motion for it to come back to have a discussion of what the city can enforce for security at apartment complexes. And so, motion by Councilmember Hussey, and I'm going to second that. Will you call the vote?
Madam Mayor, I believe Mayor Pro Tem had a statement he needed.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Just a real quick observation, and that is, I guess our point is we don't want to add to the burden for the rest of the community by approving a project that has unique security difficulties or challenges, I guess. And so from that standpoint, I would agree.
All right. Thank you. Please call the vote.
Councilmember Allen,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussey,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes?
Mayor McNabo.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. We have City Council communications. We'll begin with Councilmember Jeff Allen.
I don't have anything to report, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Bill Hussey.
I don't know if Mr. Duffy's going to mention the trunk or treat, but most of us will be out there giving out candy. But I just want to say one thing, election year and elections coming around the corner, so I just want to wish everybody who's running for local office the best of luck and Godspeed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Hussey. Mayor Pro Tem Doug Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just to piece in on the couple of meetings that I attended a couple of weeks ago, the regular San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District Board meeting took place on the 6th of October at 2 p.m. They addressed issues, mainly miscellaneous items of business, but the board voted to support Prop 15. I won't go into any greater detail in relation to that, but on the League of Cities Conference on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, I just give my quick 2 cents. I attended the Historical First Virtual Conference as the voting delegate for the 3 days. On the 7th, the opening session welcomed approximately 300 attendees. There were a series of minor technical glitches that prevented connection to the program for the first 45 minutes. The outgoing president called on committee reports and made awards. Keynote subject was "You Are Awesome, How to Use Positive Psychology Research to Prime Your Brain for Positivity During the Pandemic." The moderator was true to his word and introduced some unique perspectives to reframe your perceptions of failure, etc. The 1 to 215 was role of local governments in adapting to climate change, is what I chose to check out. And I have to say, a sizable percentage of the time was spent identifying potential liabilities in assorted locales. Fortunately, that doesn't always include us. Still, the subject wasn't lost on the approximately 150 attendees who were uber conscious about issues that can have global emphasis. Sea levels rising, drought, changing weather, seismic events on infrastructure, interruption of fire and police services, wildfires, insect infestation, floods, oxygen depletion in the ocean, species decline, and so on and on. The list is long. Also went to the placemaking and community branding that leverages your natural assets. And that was a very interesting proceeding, focused on a couple of projects advanced by a company called North Star. They're a marketing and planning organization. Will Ketchum was the moderator, and what they focused on was something that could help us in the future, and that is, obviously, Placer County Visitors Bureau and City Manager Santee have quite a bit to work with. They've got some natural wonders that they can personify, and they do it. But it also talked about what works and doesn't work, the value of logo identification and working everything off of that, and it was kind of inspiring. I know we're small, but we do have some great things in the city. On the 8th, the general session started at 9, ended at 10:30. New President Cheryl Walker moderated. They had the standard awards that were presented. Council member from Temecula, the mayor of Carpinteria, and Dan Wright, the city of Stockton, pounded through examples of the damage done. Leon was very excited about his topic. It was not new information, unfortunately. 10:45 to 12, what you need to know about municipal revenues was the topic. I think we know quite a bit about it. I think we've gone in depth, probably compared to a lot of council, but pie in the sky programs were discussed. Grand Terrace, like I said, is pretty aware of where our money comes from. There was a lot of talk about COVID impacts. A League of Cities legislative advocate was the moderator, and two men in the business of finance answered questions. It was pretty dry. And then 2 o'clock, or the 12:45 to 2 on that day, attended a housing law update. The moderator and two speakers were from B&K, and we know who they are. Affordable housing was the main focus. Density bonus, ADUs, housing elements law. No net loss issues were addressed mostly by responses to emails. Realistic cash flows and profit analysis proved that there is no free lunch. The ugliness of multi-story living spaces next to major circulation, still the same old story was ever present. Nobody with skin in the game, unfortunately, was involved in the discussions. And I think last year we talked about that, and it is a fatal flaw. The updates centered on legalese and obstructionism and government delays and legislative, and bring it down to the end. There was a presentation called 10 Years After the Bell Scandal. Are we more ethical? David Alshire was among the panelists. And he had some good things to talk about. There was a lot of posturing, I have to say, but I think the takeaway was from a few of the surrounding city managers, and that is there have been a lot of things put in place that weren't there before. So a lot of damage control, and I would say effective. Obviously, what happened with the Bell scandal, there was a con artist, just took advantage of the lack of safeguards, raided a phony fund for hundreds of thousands of dollars were channeled into, and he was also pretty much an egomaniac, and he just led him down a real bad path. On the third day, there was layoffs, furloughs, and concessions hosted by partners of Lieber, Cassidy, and Whitmore. We are also no strangers to this topic. However, sans a general census is the territory of the city manager. Meet and confer obligations, and as the title suggests, strategies for implementing long and short-term labor agreements, challenges of engagement during difficult times. I believe that we are on the cutting edge of this. Unfortunately, it just reinforces the opinion I have maintained through my tenure of civil service, that is, slow your roll. In other words, take a little bit of time, get a good perspective before you make big-time decisions that might get you to a point where money is short. The long perspective is the safe one. Any good business shorts itself on overhead and only adds to the payroll burden as warranted. And then the last meeting was the 10:15 to 11 o'clock was the mayor's and council members' department meeting. The sessions were running late. I wasn't able to connect for some reason, but the General Assembly commenced at 11. Introduction of the basis for the impending resolution vote was made. An amendment to Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of '96 to require social media companies to remove materials which promote criminal activities. The 10:15 meeting bled into a closing General Assembly as opinion after opinion was offered, mostly opposing a platform requiring a petition to U.S. Congress to amend Section 230 of the Decency Act. Case examples were presented, but in the end, the league was too short, 2 people short. So it just goes to show you that, one person can make a difference of the required quorum of 239. And only an advisory could be communicated regarding the perceived liability represented by an unamended Section 230, that of public expressions of hate speech and ideological biases as veiled attempts at instigating flash robs through social media. So unfortunately, they weren't able to quite get what they wanted to do, but they did communicate the opinion, and that is my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that very thorough report, Mayor Pro Tem. It's unfortunate that you didn't get to travel to some beautiful paradise for this meeting that you attended, but perhaps you were able to pay more attention to what was going on. Thank you so much for going through all that and for sticking with all of those sessions. So I attended a SBCTA General Policy Committee and the Metro Valley Study session last week on 14th and 15th respectively. A lot of end of the year, budget to actual, Measure I revenue report. We had a surplus property inventory report. We had a real estate services for property and facility management services contract to review. We looked at fiscal year and initiatives and action plan for the coming year. We heard about the status of the western Joshua tree, and there is somebody that is wanting this to be considered threatened as an endangered species. I know that to Grand Terrace that doesn't really enter into an issue for us, but it does for our neighbors to the north. And they're looking at problems they will have with building and expanding. And it's something to consider because they do have methods for making sure their Joshua trees are taken care of. And this is a different species than the ones that were endangered before. And so to me, it's something to consider because I believe that the people that are asking it to be treated as a threat or treating it as an endangered species don't necessarily live up in the high desert. So somebody could come into our area, our neighboring area, and decide to determine something like that. Something to think about and to listen to our neighbors and to be supportive where we can. We also looked at, considered adopting the Southern California Association of Government Safety Pledge. And so what this is Southern California Association of Governments region, California and the nation have experienced a period of annual declines in traffic-related fatalities and serious injuries up until 2012. And then from that time forward, they began to rise steadily. So although the region had made some progress related to safety between 2012 and 2016, an average of 1,500 people were killed, 5,200 were seriously injured, and 136,000 were injured in traffic collisions each year. About 73% of those killed between 2001 and 2016 were in vehicles or on motorcycles. The remaining 27% were walking or bicycling. So it was disproportionate to their mode. The share, 12% of all daily trips are walking or biking trips. The number of both pedestrians and cyclists killed are the highest they have been for more than a decade. The collisions are happening in every city across the region, and the idea behind this pledge is to heighten awareness of the region's transportation safety challenges and opportunities, and to reduce collisions resulting in serious injuries or fatalities. So residents, hopefully you will see the advertising that they will have for their Go Human campaign that is supposed to help you to recognize the need to slow down and to watch what's going on and maybe help avert some of these collisions. They also plan on doing safety demonstration projects and showcasing innovative transportation designs that will help cities to re-envision their streets as safer, more accessible places for walking and biking. And I know in the city of Grand Terrace, there are a lot of hazards as a pedestrian. People that are in a hurry to get home that are not recognizing that they might be running stoplights, they might be running through crosswalks where people are crossing or biking. And so that is something that we as a city need to make sure that we are cognizant of. So the program is funded annually through the California Office of Traffic Safety, and it has been for the past 4 years. The Southern California Assembly of Governments Safety Pledge, as applied to San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, simply states that SBCTA commits to safety, to design and build safer streets that promote walking, biking, and community connections. And the pledge is, of course, not a commitment to any specific actions, but that means it can open up the opportunity for projects with the cities within the region to help them to create safer walking spaces and biking spaces within their cities. And so that will move forward to the board. We also received a San Bernardino Council of Governments marketing plan update and project updates in our Metro Valley study session. Probably one of the most fulfilling meetings that I went to since our last meeting, I was invited to the Eagle Scout Court of Honor for Nathan Felix from Troop 40, and that was on Saturday, October 24th, and got to hear of all the accomplishments of this fine young man, and to just remember that we have some really, really good residents in our city that are doing wonderful things for the community. And one of the speakers talked about the idea of achieving the rank of Eagle Scout and how that's not an end in and of itself. It's actually the beginning, and from that point forward, Eagle Scout will follow those that have achieved it, so there will be Nathan Felix, Eagle Scout, and a reminder that they need to make a fulfillment of who they are in everything that they do in the rest of their life, which is a really fine message. And lastly, I was honored to be able to create a virtual message for Red Ribbon Week, which is taking place at our schools locally in a virtual manner. So thank you to the parents and the teachers who made that possible. And I will say to those of you that are running for election, good luck to you. I know you've put in a lot of hard work, and I'm really looking forward to this election season at all levels being over by the next time we meet. So I will close there and ask Mr. Duffy if he has any communications.
I do not, Mayor.
All right. So we have no closed session tonight. I will adjourn to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on a future agenda must be made in writing and submitted to the city clerk's office, and a request will be processed in accordance with council procedures. Happy Halloween. We are adjourned.